What up, YouTube? It's your boy I See the God King checking in again. I'm just want to jump online because I had a couple of phone calls about my last video I did, which was entitled Don't Get Stuck in the Time Warp. A good friend of mine, he called me. He was basically saying, hey man, you might offend a couple of people from my hometown, or from my home state with the statements, you know what I'm saying? And I told him, I said, you know what? It is going to offend some people. And not to make it like a big town versus a small town situation. Because as I told him, there are big towns that are stuck in time warps as well. So what do you mean by that? What big towns are stuck in time warps, The one that jumped in my mind right away was Los Angeles. I love Los Angeles. I love the weather and the energy of the people. But when I'm dealing with people out there, it's still, in my opinion, it's still kind of stuck in the 1990s. Like even when I was in LA, listen to the radio, I still hear Dr. Dre and Snoop, and not to take away from them guys as legends, but the energy, it still feel like 1999 with the gang culture, and just like people going to visit, and you gotta think about what you're wearing, and can you wear jewelry out there? That all stems from stuff that I was exposed to in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, about Los Angeles, and the same could be said for cities like New York and Atlanta and other cities, Houston, DC. Everybody kind of stuck in a particular time warp, right? So with that being said, I told my friend, I said, only people who are moving forward, and it's like an individuals. And I said, somebody like Elon Musk, he not from the United States. He's from South Africa. But he moved to a city that sounded a beacon where he had access and resources to bring his thoughts and his dreams and his manifestations to reality. Then I also mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, I'm not sure where Mark's from, but I don't think he's from California. And so he moved to California. You think about a lot of people who become successful, they move around. For example, I know Barack Obama was president. He was a world traveler as a child, with his father having ancestors in Kenya, I believe, or somewhere in Africa, and he grew up in Hawaii, so he's seen a lot. He was like what you call worldly culture. So the time warps do exist, and you just have to be conscious and cognizant of those and how to maneuver in these games, the game called life. You know what I'm saying? You don't believe me? If you know anybody who's been to Asia, has been to Japan, South Korea. I had a buddy of mine, he was in the military. He went over there, and he would tell me like, man, this is a long time ago, mind you, but he was telling me like, yeah, they got phones where you can do FaceTime. Basically, he was telling me about FaceTime, and they had it like 10 years before us. And then people would say statements like, hey, they living in the future. So how is that? Like a city like Dubai, they living in the future. So they're living in the future, and America is somewhat not living in the future. America is still, like the Trump thing, right? Trump whole mantra is make America great again, like the old days. The Republicans rallied behind his ideology of the old days. What's the old days? You know what the old days is? The towns that I drove through in Alabama, them towns I drove through in North Florida, the small towns I drove through in Georgia. The old days was the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, when white people was running things. Black people had to go to the back of the restaurant, and the country was not as diverse at all back then. Those were the good days to them. In Asia, Japan, South Korea, all those places I named where there's forward thinking, mobility, movement, they don't really have a diverse population like how America got. So they don't waste a lot of their time thinking about how can we move forward, but then at the same time hold certain groups of people back. Now, I'm not going to say that in those countries there is no form of racism or anything like that, but what I am saying is America goes out of its way to not benefit the entire population and just a select few. And so with that being said, America wanted to go back in time. America want to go back. They want to stay still. They don't want to move forward. They don't want minorities and black people and a women president. They don't want that. They don't want that. They are January 6th showed me white people are willing to steal and kill, to fight and bleed and die and kill other white people too, to keep shit going backwards. So America is stuck because their core values is on some racist shit. You know, they want to go back, and the rest of the world is moving forward. And that's why you got cities like Dubai. They doing stuff that the Middle East is like, man, we finna turn up. The closest thing America got like that is like small pockets in Vegas with the Sphere. You know what I'm saying? That's what we looking at. Like, oh, the Sphere. Florida, they trying to do a train to go from Tampa, Orlando to man, they old. They late, man. Japan did this bullet train in the 80s. And y'all just now? Come on, bro. They don't want to move forward, man. They want to keep, they're constantly going back or stuck. The game is rigged. The game has been rigged for them to win. So they rather see this country crash and burn before they do something that's going to be beneficial for Americans. So, and that kind of explains a little more in depth the time warp conversation I had in my last video. And a correction, I did not mean to say if you don't have a plan before high school, you're in trouble. I meant to say before finishing high school. You need to have a plan before finishing high school. So yeah, you know, the time warps do exist. And you just gotta recognize when do an assessment. Where are you at? Like, just think about where you live. Think about what resources do you have to you? What job growth potentials? Can you afford to buy a home? You know, do you need to be in a relationship? Do you need to be getting married so you can have two incomes and thrive together and not do it on your own, you know? So, and then you got to identify the town and the city and the country and then, you know, and make a game plan from there. So, I just wanted to talk about that in regards to the time warp situation. And, you know, if you got any more questions for me, give me a call or leave a comment. And then, you know, I'm really enjoying these conversations, and I'm going to keep doing videos about things that are in the back of my mind. You know, it's time for me to come out and start finding my lane and talking about it. So hope you enjoyed this conversation. You know, subscribe, like the video and all that good stuff. Leave a comment, man. I want to see what y'all think. Am I just talking bullshit, or is some of the shit I'm saying making sense? All right, holla at you.